Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? Why are you here? Now, it's a rhetorical question, but it's a very important question, and it picks up from where Catherine left off. Is adult learners, you will not learn anything unless you know why you want to learn. I mean, you had 12 years at school, however many years in postgraduate education. So you could phase out, you can block out the teacher, the trainer, the facilitator professionally. Right? And we put up PowerPoint slides, so you're going to glaze over now, and you're going to have the same perspective, unless you have a why. Because adult learners don't learn unless they know why. Let me share a quick story. In my introduction, it says I'm English by birth. I moved to Australia in 1985. In 2003, I started to go up to Singapore because I put the leadership and coaching program in Singapore Airlines. But what was instructional for me was the very first trip I did. Singapore Airlines flew me up from Sydney to Singapore. They put me up in a very nice hotel. And I was feeling very VIP-like, having been flown business class and put up in this very nice suite. And when a little note came under the door that said, transportation has been arranged for you to the training venue the next day, I was imagining a limousine. So imagine my disappointment when after breakfast I went out and there was no limousine but a grey minibus. Also my confusion when the grey minibus was not just for me, but lots of people were getting on the grey minibus. And they were all greeting each other, they recognised each other, and somebody asked me a question, where are you from? And I answered, Sydney. And he went, oh, welcome. And I suspected an assumption had been made because Singapore Airlines is such a large organisation. He had assumed I was the manager for Sydney because I had realised the people getting on the minibus were the people that I were going to train and facilitate to be coaches for Singapore Airlines. Now this assumption was confirmed when sitting on the minibus. Two of my participants, who did not yet know I was going to be the facilitator, had a conversation. And they were the airport managers from London and Melbourne. The bus contained Narita and New York and pretty much every major hub in the world. And London said to Melbourne, do you know why we're... Sorry, London said, do you know why we're here? And Melbourne said, I don't know. Another stupid training, another stupid consultant. Now, being the stupid consultant, this is very useful information. And of course, we all pile into a training area for down at Changi, and they get their coffee and take a seat, and I walk up front and plug in my laptop computer. Now, I pointedly looked at Melbourne and London, and of course, I had their full attention, which I hope I'm going to have from you. Okay? So I now live in Singapore, and I understand that if you ask Singaporeans a question, they don't actually want to respond for fear of getting the wrong answer. Having worked in India, I know that's not the case. So we're going to have some fun. So the first question you need to answer for yourself is why? Now, Catherine talked about coaching, and there are many definitions of coaching. One that I like to use, particularly coaching in an organisation, and it has the word that Catherine used, is a process of facilitating the development of a person or people towards an objective through the approach of asking, not telling. And this addresses the gentleman's question on the front row here. The distinction between me as the trainer is I'm going to tell you some things. But you're actually only going to learn when I ask you some things and you come up with a conclusion yourself. Gentlemen, if your wives want you to do something, they make it your idea. True or not? True. Nobody does anything really with true intrinsic motivation unless it's their own idea. And so we need to learn to ask the right and most powerful questions, which is one of the core competency of a coach. So what are the questions that we should ask? Well, let me start with a reflection piece, if I may. Let's do a little group coaching. Firstly, I will put this. What does this represent? A chessboard. Why is this so important? Because it was invented in India. All right, this is an Indian invention that very quickly moved to Persia, and of course, when Muslims invaded Persia, of course, went to Europe, and is now pretty much world recognized. So what I'm going to invite you to do for a moment is consider for yourself that you are a piece on a chessboard. So I'll go through the various pieces, and just check in with yourself internally what resonates with you. So the first piece, of course, is a pawn. The pawn is a fairly powerless piece. It moves forward first, and it resolutely moves towards the enemy. Of course, very likely to be sacrificed very early in the game. And yet sometimes we feel like a pawn. The next piece, of course, is the knight. This is a very aggressive piece. It jumps forwards and sideways and surprises the enemy. And many of you in this room would resonate with being risk-embracing and challenging the status quo. But of course, the knight also may fall early in a game. Some of you do not see the world in kind of forwards and sideways movements. You like to cut diagonally across the world, and you would be a bishop. Some of you are a little bit more defensive, a little bit slower, but very solid and resolute and strong. You would be a castle or a rook, very closely associated with the king. And some of you, perhaps, those of you running your own businesses, think, well, I'm the king. But the king